Hey guys, Mustached Tom here to review The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 1. So, instead of just doing the seasonal review of the entire thing after the fact, I figure, I might as well jump in, try to catch every episode of this particular show, see if I can manage it. So, with that, let's dive into The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 1. Now, of course, this comes with some pretense. Of course, this is based off of the video game, which had a sequel, which, both its original and the sequel have had remaster after remaster after remaster, because profits. But, The Last of Us 2 definitely was in it. I've seen it, I've played a lot of The Last of Us Part 1, really enjoyed it. I wasn't able to complete the game due to circumstances of not having the subscription thingy for PlayStation long enough to complete the game, but I digress. Point being is I've seen plenty enough clips of The Last of Us 2 to formulate, at least from a story point perspective, just how broken the story, in particular in regards to, spoiler alert, I guess Joel's death in that. I mean, the game's pretty old at this juncture in time, so, whatever. But, how broken that scene is something that, I haven't had the luxury or, dissatisfaction of coming, exploiting or putting out there as a fundamental flaw of that entire video game. Among other things, that the story is, I would argue probably just aren't great. But here we are. So, now we have to bridge that gap with the live-action adaptation. And immediately, there does seem to be a different vibe. And it does come across on all characters, obviously. Joel is represented, slightly differently. Ellie's a slightly different characterization going on here. So, to be expected, there are, the heart's in the right place sort of attitude for adaptation argument's sake. But from the point of Ellie's, dissatisfaction with Joel, it comes from, the sort of end point of, Joel, Joel's choice to some respect, and this is definitely one of the aspects in the video game that weren't handled really well, is that Joel's response was definitely to just eat all of this, and not have any, room to counter, and that's something that definitely feels a little lost in character writing, is the back and forth, the banter, because you have two really strong opposing beliefs here, and very much so, this seems to be pretty consistent with the live-action adaptation. Ellie just seems to now have this contempt for Joel, and to me, it seems even more out of place than in the video game, if anything. I mean, did she figure it out? I mean, it's implied in the video game that there was some level of understanding, but acceptance in the end of the first game, which is why I have an issue with the second game, is that I think it failed to understand that open-ended, level of faith that, Ellie decided to put in Joel. Here, it doesn't feel like that's even the case. It feels like she just knows something went wrong, or something about the because the fireflies are mentioned at the tail end of the thing. And something must have went wrong with that, and Ellie just figured it out. And was upset at that. And it's definitely one of those things is like, well, is Joel just gonna tell her that, I mean, he ends up telling somebody else, this therapist lady who apparently they have their own. That scene with the lady was probably the best scene in the season. Like, I'm willing to be as objective as possible here. That scene was phenomenal because it was back and forth. It was, this lady who had contempt for Joel, but understood that he needed to do what he needed to do in killing somebody that she loved, or something along those lines. But it was a back and forth. It wasn't just this barrage of one side is, clearly just gets to have all the moment, So this scene, this segment, which was added in here, I think is easily the best part of the season's opening. It definitely. Now, granted, I would have seen. It would have been way more interesting if that had been Ellie. I saved you, right? If that really did come out, and because remember, the whole thing is like they operated on her. She was unconscious. Same parameters here, so she is unaware of that to that degree. Excuse me. So, yeah. This seems even more vague. Just, she suddenly has this dismay for Joel. And it's not the only issue with the episode. On the flip coin is we meet Abby. And I have my issues with her in the video game as well. With how inconsistent she comes off in that story. Of, like, versus the level of intelligence and all of that stuff. And, in survival mode and Joel's level of intelligence. And, everyone's levels of intelligence was put on maximum stupidity in the video game, so that's something I would greatly want to avoid. But in this adaptation, Abby seems to have a thing against Joel. We don't, but here's the problem: we don't know what it is now. So, for those of you who are forgotten or don't know, in the video game, they made it so that one of the doctors Joel kills is Abby's father. Now that's super convenient. Don't get me wrong. But at the bare minimum, it makes Abby's initial desires understandable. That is something that is worthwhile knowing. So, to me, it's so much more vague having her group come up and be like, oh, the Fireflies, they were here, and not really get a sense of what this new group is, or if they're like an alternative Firefly, because I think that's what they were in the video game, right? We don't really get a sense of any of them, really. And Abby just sort of says that they want to hunt Joel for, I guess they have, like, a sense of, like, what he does. I mean, she got a description of him pretty down pat, so I don't even know how that came about either. Like, how did she come into contact with this info? Again, additive material you could have added into the adaptation that I feel like probably would have been warranted, considering how convenient this all comes across. Like, she just happens to find the village that they're in, or town, or whatever it is. and it just sort of comes together. It's like, do you buy that with how big the world is, you know? And, you know, again, there was this understanding, at least in the video game, of, like, at least she had her base rage to go off of, and to me, the Firefly thing doesn't, again, because I don't know if she herself is a Firefly, that doesn't come across in the first episode, or, you know, was she even connected to any of the doctors that's unanswered in this episode? You know, it's all left up to this, again, this vague rage that she has, and she makes it crystal clear, by the way. She says, at some point, we're gonna make his death slow. So her rage is personal, but we don't know why it's personal now. And that's the issue. We don't understand why, and I have a feeling we're probably going to get a similar-ish answer if everything is going to be as close as it was to the video games. I don't know. But Joel's death, we will see how they handle that, because everything in that scene is wrong. And I mean everything. Not just Joel's attitude, Abby's attitude, Ellie's placement, Ellie's attitude. Everything in that scene is fundamentally broken. So how much do you have to fix to make Joel's death seem brutal, but, like, still organized? And I know it's a weird thing to say, because here's the thing, right? And I'm going to compare it to another adaptation thing. I guess even bigger, or, like, later, spoiler alert, for a completely different show, The Walking Dead. Glenn's death is very much where I think this needs to go. Because Glenn's death is brutal, and they get pinned down. There was, like, no options for this group, like how how they organize everything. And that's the thing about the video game. The scene's atmosphere doesn't make any logical sense. They're in a basement, as far as I could tell, with one way in, and Ellie has a prime position, at least starting position, before things go out of hand, to, like, be on the outside and gunning her way inside. So that was her fuck up, first of all. And then there's Abby's switch of, like, everyone else is telling her to kill Ellie, which, you know, would make sense. They don't know her, and two, she's threatening to kill their entire group, so it would make sense to also just kill her. So that also doesn't make sense on Abby. And then there's Joel's stupidity in saying his name to this group that he didn't even know, and all that dumb shit. So everyone was on stupidity, again, in the video game. So, like, how much do you have to fix, right? You have to create a completely... Again, where they shoot this is probably going to be also crucially important. Is it going to be in a similar basement? Is it going to have one way in? You know, how far apart is Ellie versus Joel? Because she has a gun, obviously, so it's like, okay, so she could potentially shoot people versus, like, them trying to shoot Joel, right? So there's a lot of different variables to keep account of, and, you know, how she's going to be split up from the rest of her group, because I think she, like, splits off from Dana and the other guy whose name, they don't even say his name in this season, so I don't remember what it is. So I'd apologize, but the season didn't help me on this one. The ex-boyfriend of Dina, that character. they like separate from Ellie, and I forget why, but point being is like they gotta do that. They gotta put it in a place that makes a little bit more physical, has a bit more space in which would make sense for Ellie to come in on. Maybe like they have Joel cornered, and that way, because they would have to turn around and then try to shoot at her still, so it's definitely going to be pretty tricky. Would it make some more sense to do it somewhere outside? Maybe. I don't know. Again, killing off a character in the way that they did was obviously pretty reckless and stupid, so you have to think about all the logistics about, where does everybody need to be, and as well as everyone's mental state, because, again, Abby's, doesn't make sense with everyone else's not making sense, so you gotta fix that too, in terms of, the group consensus has to be that they have to keep her alive or something along those lines. It has to at least make that much sense, I think. Right? Maybe they get, scared off by Dina and the other guy coming in. Maybe that's why they leave. And maybe there are even more people who are coming in to, even out the odds or whatever. Maybe that's the reason why they leave faster and don't kill Ellie. I think that would make it way more justified, honestly. Rather than, maybe they were planning on killing Ellie and then that turns out to be the case. But it's still going to be a wait and see, because the ending shot of episode 1 is them the Abby group miraculously finding Joel's city, town, whatever it is, by sheer luck. Which again, wow, talk about your conveniency, but damn. And yeah, I wonder if they're gonna set up all the other stuff the same, because I remember in the video game it's okay, so Abby is separated from them, Joel saves her, they go off somewhere else, and then they meet with the rest of the group. I remember that's how it kind of goes down in the game. So it's going to be interesting to see how the dynamic is, how they split up, how they, talk about the situation. Again, the sort of puzzle pieces of each character. And dare I say, again, that Abby seems like the only character among that group, and potentially her boyfriend? I mean, that's clear in the game, again. But again, I don't know if they're going to stick every single character the same. Who knows? I don't know. But, yeah. This is definitely already sending off some pretty bad flags. But we'll see if they can make Joel's death, if they even do it. I highly suspect that they will, if they're keeping faithful. But, who knows? Maybe they can make it more like a Glenn death, more like a, wow, they actually pulled it off, and they made it look like, something everything makes sense within the context of everything. So we'll wait and see. So that's episode 1 in a nutshell. It has a really strong scene. Every other scene is a very, it's very remnant off of, stuff that is happening in the video game with Dina and, Ellie dancing together into the kiss, into the guy that's and then Joel coming in. That all happens in the game. So again, that 1-to-1 comparison is definitely something that's still present, it would seem. But they are adding things, so again, I can't say with a 100% certainty of things happening moving forward, but there's, with a 90% chance of it happening, I'm willing to see if they're able to fix what was so fundamentally broken, or if we're gonna have a complete one-to-one repeat of everything that happened in the video game, and then I get to complain and say how much it was actually too much like the video game, which is something I don't think you hear at all ever complained about, but hey, this is a first time for everything, I think. So, there you go. Anyway, if you enjoyed this review, then look forward to me, again, trying to keep up with every episode. I'm going to try my best at it again. And yeah, if you ended up enjoying the full review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head over to my petition about small YouTubers. Second, to my PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And third, to my Discord server. You can join, collab, shield, all that cool stuff. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.